There were two of us living in that apartment, 2 keys, 2 toothbrushes, but every few days a third toothbrush would show up in the cup by the sink. Wet, used. We'd throw it out, and a few days later there'd be another one. Somebody was brushing their teeth in our bathroom, and it wasn't either of us. Welcome back. Tonight, 3 true stories about the people we live with, and the people we didn't know we were living with. Because a home has more corners than you think, and sometimes someone finds one and quietly moves in. Let's begin. My roommate and I rented the top floor of an old house that had been split into apartments. Just the two of us, a guy I'd known since college. It was a great place, big, cheap, a little run down. The kind of apartment with odd nooks and slanted ceilings and more storage than we could ever fill. We'd been there about 2 months when the toothbrush thing started. I found the first one and assumed it was his. A third toothbrush in the cup by the sink, a color neither of us used. I asked him about it, kind of joking, and he had no idea what I was talking about. He hadn't bought it. He'd never seen it. We stood there looking at this toothbrush, and it was wet, recently used. We threw it out and didn't really talk about it the way you don't talk about a thing that doesn't have an explanation. 4 days later, there was another one, different color, also wet, also used. That's when it stopped being funny, because a toothbrush doesn't just appear. Someone had to bring it into our apartment and put it in our bathroom and use it, and they had to be doing it in the gaps when neither of us was home or when we were both asleep. We changed the lock on the front door. New deadbolt. We had the only 2 keys. The next toothbrush showed up 3 days after that. Then we started noticing the other things. Food. Not a lot. Never enough to be obvious at first, but a little. A couple of eggs gone, bread going faster than 2 people eat bread. A container of leftovers I know I saved, just gone, washed back in the cabinet. And blankets. We kept spare blankets in the hall closet, and one morning my roommate found one of them balled up in the back of that closet, and it was warm. Not room temperature. Warm. Like someone had just been wrapped up in it. We told ourselves every story you could tell, that we were forgetting things, that one of us was sleepwalking, that the landlord had a key and was doing something bizarre. But deep down, both of us had started to feel it. That feeling of not being alone in a space that's supposed to be yours. You come home, and the air feels disturbed. You hear the apartment settle, and you're not sure it's settling. You start leaving the bathroom door open so nothing can be behind it. We started keeping a kind of log without ever calling it that. A mental tally of the small wrongnesses. My roommate swore his shoes had been moved, lined up neatly by the door when he always kicked them off in a heap. I found my desk chair pulled out and turned to face the window one morning, and I sleep with my bedroom door shut. Little rearrangements. Like someone was using our things while we were gone and not quite putting them back the way a person who actually lived there would. And it got so bad that both of us separately started locking our bedroom doors from the inside at night. 2 grown men locking our doors against our own apartment, and neither of us willing to admit to the other why. We just did it. Because some animal part of your brain knows when a space is being shared with something, long before the thinking part will let you say the words out loud. The night we found out, I woke up around 3 to the sound of running water. The bathroom tap. I lay there and I listened to it run, and then shut off, and then I heard the soft, unmistakable sound of someone spitting into the sink, brushing their teeth in our bathroom at 3 in the morning, and I knew my roommate was asleep in his room because I could hear him snoring through the wall. I woke him up. We armed ourselves with whatever was handy, and we went through that whole apartment together, every room, hearts pounding, and it was empty. Nobody there. Front door locked, deadbolt thrown, our 2 keys accounted for. But there was a fresh toothbrush in the cup, still wet. We finally found it because of the ceiling. The next day, looking for any way in or out, my roommate noticed a panel in the back of that hall closet, a little access hatch we'd never opened, up high, painted over, and behind it was the crawl space under the eaves of the old house. And in that crawl space, someone had made a little nest, a sleeping bag, bottles of water, food wrappers, our food, a few toothbrushes lined up neatly on a board, and a spot worn into the insulation right up against the wall of my bedroom, where someone had been lying for who knows how long with their ear or their eye pressed to a gap in the boards. The landlord swore he knew nothing. The police found the nest, but never found the person. And here's the part I hate. That crawl space ran the whole length of the apartment, over all our rooms. There were worn spots over all of them, over the bathroom, over the kitchen, over both our beds. They'd been living above us the entire time, coming down at night into our space, using our things, eating our food, brushing their teeth in our sink, and then climbing back up into the ceiling to sleep a few feet over our heads and listen to us breathe. We moved out the next day, and I still don't sleep well in a room with an attic, because I know now how little space a person really needs to live inside your life without you ever seeing them. Some house guests need an attic to hide in. The next 2 roommates never found out where theirs was sleeping. They only knew week after week that their groceries were disappearing, and neither of them was the one taking them. 2 roommates, a small 2-bedroom, and only 2 keys. They were careful about that, because the neighborhood wasn't great. And after a few weeks, one of them started noticing the groceries didn't last. She'd buy for the week, careful shopper, and by midweek things were gone that shouldn't be gone. She figured her roommate was snacking. Her roommate figured she was. It caused a couple of little arguments, the way that stuff does, until they realized neither of them was doing it. Food was just leaving. Then came the couch. They had a throw blanket on the couch, and more than once, one of them would come home to find it disturbed, bunched up, pushed to one end, like someone had been lying under it, and warm. That was the detail that scared them both. You'd put your hand on it, and it would be warm, in an empty apartment, in the middle of the day when you'd both been out for hours. The arguments got bad before the camera. That's the cruel part of it. The thing living in your home starts by turning you against the person you live with. She was certain her roommate was lying about the food, sneaking around, maybe letting a boyfriend crash without asking. Her roommate was just as certain it was the other way around. They stopped trusting each other. They labeled their groceries. They left little passive-aggressive notes on the fridge. And the whole time, the real explanation was lying under a throw blanket on their couch in the middle of the afternoon, listening to the 2 of them fight about him through the walls, and helping himself to whatever he wanted the second they left. That might be the worst thing about it, looking back. Before they'd ever seen his face, he had already made the 2 of them feel alone in their own home, together and alone at the same time. They set up a cheap little camera, the kind you can check on your phone, pointed at the living room. And for a few days, nothing. Then one afternoon, both of them out, the app pinged one of them at work. Motion. She opened it, and she watched, on her phone, a man she had never seen get up off their couch. He'd been lying under the throw blanket the whole time, in the frame, and she just hadn't realized the lump was a person, and stretch, and walk into their kitchen, and calmly make himself a sandwich from their fridge and eat it standing up, and then walk down the hall out of frame toward the bedrooms, comfortable, at home, like he lived there. They called the police from her office. The officers went in, and the man was gone, but his things weren't. In the back of the hall closet, behind the coats, there was a gym bag with clothes, toiletries, a phone charger. He'd been living there, sleeping there. He'd figured out their schedules when they left, when they came back, and he'd been occupying the apartment in the hours in between, like a night shift worker sharing a bed with a day shift one, except they'd never agreed to it, never known. They still don't know how he got in with only 2 keys, or how long he'd been doing it before they noticed the groceries. But she told me the thing she can't stop thinking about is all the evenings they'd sat on that couch watching TV with the throw blanket folded up beside them, and how many of those nights he'd been in the apartment the whole time, just down the hall, waiting for them to go to sleep so he could have his turn. That one at least came in through a door they already owned. The last roommates tonight had a stranger problem. The door that undid them was one that had never been part of their apartment at all. 2 roommates, a rented apartment, lived there almost a year with no problems at all. And one night, one of them got up to use the bathroom, and on her way down the hall in the dark, she noticed a door she didn't recognize at the end of the hall. A plain, wooden door, shut, that she was certain had never been there before. She figured she was half asleep, and in the morning she'd laugh at herself. But in the morning, the door was still there, and her roommate saw it too. Neither of them remembered it. Neither of them could explain it. It was just a door at the end of their hallway in an apartment they'd lived in for a year. A door that both of them would have sworn on their lives had always just been blank wall. They didn't open it. That's the part people can't believe. They just didn't. Something about it. They agreed, without really discussing it, to leave it shut. They put it out of their minds, and for a few days they managed to. They even built little habits around it, the way you do around anything you're pretending not to be afraid of. They stopped using that end of the hall after dark. They kept a light on down there always, and neither of them could have told you why a door needed a light kept on. When friends came over, they caught themselves steering people away from it, changing the subject, standing in front of it, as if a guest asking, "Hey, what's in there?" might somehow make it realer. And once, only once, one of them put her flat hand against the wood in broad daylight, just to feel it, just to prove to herself it was an ordinary door. She told me it was cold, deep cold. The cold of outside air, of a winter night, seeping through the wood, in the middle of summer, in a warm hallway, in an apartment 3 floors up. She never touched it again. Then the sound started. From behind the door, at night. Soft at first, a shifting, a settling. The sound of a room being lived in on the other side of a wall that used to be solid. And then, some nights, footsteps, slow ones, crossing back and forth behind that door. And once, Late, the soft click of the handle from the inside, being tested, turning a little and then stopping. They broke the lease. They told the landlord they were leaving. No explanation. They'd eat the deposit. And on their way out, the landlord met them to collect the keys, and one of them finally asked about the door at the end of the hall, what was behind it. And the landlord frowned, and he looked genuinely puzzled, and he said, "What door? There's no door at the end of that hall. There never has been. That's an exterior wall." They didn't go back to check. They were already in the car. But she told me she thought about it every day since. Because if it was an exterior wall, if there was nothing behind that door but the open air 3 floors up, then something had been walking back and forth in a room that couldn't exist, and it had been reaching for the handle from the inside, trying to get out, into the hall, with them. That's all for tonight. If you live with someone, go count the toothbrushes. And while you're up, subscribe and hit the bell, because there's a new, true horror story here every single night, and you won't want to miss one. Drop a like so it finds the next person in the dark, and share it with your roommate. Let them sleep on it too. I'll be right here tomorrow night when the lights go down. Sleep well if you can.
Like, share, and subscribe for daily horror stories every single day.